It's time for Meet Your Neighbor, brought to you by United Supermarket here in Muleshoe on U.S. Highway 84 and 9th Street. And during the Christmas holidays, we've had family here, and our son, Grayson Reynolds, one of our family members visiting in our home from Taos, New Mexico. And Grayson, would you introduce your friend who you brought with you?
Yes, this is my girlfriend, Mar Santos.
And you go by what?
Mar.
That's a little bit easier, isn't it? And Mar, where are you from?
I'm from Dixon, New Mexico.
Dixon, New Mexico. Now tell us where Dixon is.
Dixon is between Taos and Espanola.
I see. And so how did you and Grayson meet?
We were both on the same hotshot crew, Carson Hot Shots.
So you're a hotshot fireman.
Yes, that's correct.
So percentage-wise, do you have any idea how many women are hotshot firemen?
No, I don't.
Would there always be a woman at least on every crew?
More and more there are women, but I don't know, maybe a couple per 20-man crew. Uh-huh. There's a couple women on the cruise.
And so are the women given the lighter jobs to do?
I hope not.
You hope not. But so you can do exactly what the men do?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Can they, Grayson?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Mar, what have you done? Like, where did you go to school?
I went to Pitzer College in Claremont, California.
Uh-huh.
I got a degree in Latin American Studies and Art.
And so what did you do after that?
After that, what did I do?
I went to Alaska, didn't you?
At one point I did 2008, summer of 2008, I went to, what was it? Sandpoint, Alaska. And I fished for salmon on a commercial salmon fishing boat.
My goodness.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. So what months did you work?
I think it was May to August. Uh-huh. And it was actually a kind of an interesting year because they had cut off. They weren't allowing people in Seattle to fish for salmon. So there was kind of a salmon shortage. And so we were getting better prices up north in Alaska.
Now, did you live on the ship?
Yes, I did. I lived in the forecastle.
In the what?
The forecastle.
The forecastle.
Yeah.
And were there a lot of workers who worked there or not?
There were 6 of us on the boat, including a cook. And
so you slept, you ate, and you worked on the boat.
That's correct. Yeah.
Did you like it?
I did. It was pretty interesting. It's a very different way of life, and I actually almost fell into the hole where all the fish, the salmon, are pushed into one time, which was kind of scary. Yeah, because it got real slippery on the deck whenever all those fish scales and everything were in there.
I bet it did.
Yeah.
And did you come into any really rough weather on the ocean?
No, that side of it's the Aleutian chain, and that side, the Bering side, is very rough, but that side, which I can't remember, is pretty mellow. We did catch a shark once.
And so did you throw it back, or?
Well, I won't talk about what they did to the shark. It's kind of sad. But, and then orca whales busted through our nets and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty interesting. There was,
And you'd never done anything like that before?
No, I hadn't.
A girl from northern New Mexico?
That's correct, yeah.
No oceans?
I'm a landlubber, for sure. Yeah.
So did you go back and dock ever so often or not?
Yeah, we would fill up our fish tank in the bottom of the boat and then take it back to the cannery, which is where they would process the fish.
Do you like to eat salmon now?
No. I do not like salmon.
Did you like salmon before?
No, I never liked salmon.
You never liked salmon. Now, when you were on the boat and out in the sea, well, what kind of things did they feed you? The cook, what would he cook?
Oh, he was a good cook, so he would buy us good. I mean, a lot of them would just cook up whatever we caught, but I don't know, normal food, lasagna and all that kind of stuff.
Good.
So yeah.
Were there other women working on that boat?
Yeah, there was one other woman. Her name was Christy. She was very cool. She was awesome. She would drive the other little skid boat out.
Now, explain the skid boat. What is it needed for?
Okay, so it's a purse seining, which is you have a little boat and the big boat, and you set the net. It's hard to explain, but you set the net between the two.
I see.
And then you reel in the net, and that's how you catch the fish.
And about how much can you at one time catch?
I couldn't tell you that. I know over the season we got 1 million pounds of salmon.
1 million pounds of salmon.
Yeah, that was kind of a good year for my captain, and he was pretty old school. He wasn't the best fisherman out there, but he was 70 years old and had broken his back in the winch and all that kind of stuff. He was a tough old guy. So.
Yeah, he must have been.
Yeah.
So you came back then to Dixon, and does your family live there still?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Now, where were you actually born?
I was actually born in Espanola, New Mexico.
And they were already living in Dixon at that time? Or
Yes, that's correct.
Well, why did they come to Dixon?
My dad was looking for cheap land in northern New Mexico, and I guess he kind of knew some people who had moved to Dixon, and a lot of people went there because of the ditches and the farming that you can do there.
Well, now tell us, what do they raise in Dixon and in that immediate area? Is it up in the mountains, or is it in a valley, or a level land, or what kind of place?
Yeah, it's kind of in a box canyon area, and it's low enough to where you can grow a lot of warmer season crops. Which is popular now in that area. There's a lot of organic growers there.
Really? What do they grow organically in the Dixon community?
They grow peppers, tomatoes, carrots. I mean, just everything, yeah.
Grapes. There's a couple of vineyards. 3 vineyards?
Yeah.
2 vineyards. Yeah. How many vineyards, though? 2 or 3? I know there's 2 that I know
there's
of.
2. Maybe 3. 3 now.
3 vineyards. And then there's some still apples. Some apples, but they don't produce very well. Yeah. Because of the season frost. But anyways, yeah.
And so now, what about the apples? There used to be a lot of apple orchards there.
Yeah, and I was researching this morning because I wasn't sure, and I wanted to have the right information. I guess those ditches are they were established in 1725.
1725. Yeah. Now, explain what the ditch is for.
So the ditch just takes the river water up higher, and then...
Or acequias.
Yeah.
What?
They call them acequias. That's a ditch in Spanish.
In Spanish.
Yeah. So they take the river up at a higher area and then kind of run them up along the side of the mountain, and then the water gets dispersed back through the valley. And those ditches are really old, but apparently they were revamped in the 1940s, maybe, with the WPA programs and all that. Right. And they also put in the government helped to put in all of these orchards in that area.
They did,
Yeah.
Now, were there any orchards on your family's place?
Yeah, they have an orchard.
They have an orchard still today.
Yeah, and I'm trying to fix it. It's been neglected for a while, but
so you're working that land.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
And tell me about what kind of apples they are.
They're not the best apples because it was back in the 40s. They just have red delicious and yellow delicious and or golden delicious and Johnny. What is that one? Macintosh and Roma. Yeah, but now they have a lot better varieties out there.
And so how many acres or rows of apple trees do you all have?
I think it's about 3 acres.
3 acres.
And there's peaches on there as well.
Peaches too.
Yeah.
They what?
And apricots. There's a huge apricot tree. But there's old apricot trees all over the place because they grow wild. But they're brought by the Spaniards.
Really?
Yeah, so you'll find them on the randomly on the hillside. Oh, here's an apricot tree. Well, it didn't get here by itself. It got here by Spaniards. They brought the apricots, and they grow really well in the desert. They're really climatized to the desert to grow in it, and but they'll have fruit. Like just this year on our fire base in Silver City, in New Mexico, they had tons of apricots, tons of them. Yeah. And nobody waters them. It just produces by itself. But they're not great because they're mealy and mushy. There's not, if someone's watering them, taking care of them, they'll be tastier.
Now, how are your peaches? Are they good?
They would be good if we ever got them, but we don't really get fruit that much with the way we get the late frosts. And that's why a lot of people turned in their apple orchards. They don't get any money from it. And
And so now, when were the apples probably first brought there, the apple orchards?
I couldn't tell you for sure, but what I've been told from a friend was that it was in the 1940s.
After the Depression.
Yeah.
And probably when the WPA revamped the ditches, too.
Yeah.
So now, who actually established those first ditches back in the 1700s?
Well, I don't know. I guess it would be the early Spanish people that were there, but I assume that it definitely has.
The Pueblos that lived there are gone, far gone. So it's not. It's definitely wasn't them. So that's only people who would have been in the area. So Spanish.
And so that has a very wonderful backlog of deep roots, not just the apple trees. So it wasn't Johnny Appleseed who came.
No.
And now tell us about Dixon. What kind of a community is it? How big is it?
We're thinking it's about 1,000 people. A lot of artists live there, and farmers and older people live there.
Is there a school?
There is a small school, Dixon Elementary. It's a good school. It's got a lot of awards and stuff, but they might close it down because of the state needs money and all that kind of stuff.
And so it goes through what grade?
It goes up to sixth grade. Yeah.
Did you ever go to Dixon Elementary?
I went to Dixon through 3rd grade, and then I went up to Penasco.
I see. Where did you graduate from high school?
From Taos High School.
Taos.
Yeah.
So did you ride a school bus into town?
No, at that point I was driving. And,
I see.
Yeah.
And so how far is Taos from Dixon?
It's about 35 miles to town.
Not far. No. But now, do you get much snow?
Not so much anymore. In the 80s, we got a lot of snow, but we don't get.
Changed.
This year, though, boy, we're getting a lot this year. 6, I think I counted 6 snowstorms, and before the end of the year. So usually last year, the couple years I've been up there, or in Dixon at least, it was only like one, snowstorm if you were lucky by this time of year. Down in the valley. But everywhere up high, which you go 10 miles and you're at 9,000 foot already, then you're getting the more snowstorms, more inches. And it's just like Taos from Taos Ski Valley. They get a lot more snow in Taos Ski Valley versus Taos, but Taos is higher than Dixon, and Dixon is lower, about, $5,000 or something, 5,000 foot up.
I see. And now there's a co-op there. Explain me the co-op.
The co-op, I am not sure how long ago they started it, but they wrote a grant to start that, and they have a radio station that was along with that grant. And
in Dixon, a town of 1,000.
In Dixon, yeah. And the co-op is, I guess, co-ops are owned by the members partly, and yeah.
And so, what is in the co-op?
Just normal stuff. I mean, they have locally grown vegetables and all that kind of stuff. They have a lot of organic meats and but soda pops and chips are the biggest sellers for sure.
Now, and what?
And the reason she knows is her parents are members of the co-op, so they go every night and clean.
Yeah.
Was it
my
every
dad is my dad's the guy who cleans the co-op. He works there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're members and they work there also. They're paid employees. And people, well, I mean, they all go clean it, to help with, because it's a one-man job. It takes a while. So her mom or her dad or her brother or her will go and clean. So, but I was just clarifying that they're
volunteers. My mother and I are volunteers.
But your dad gets...
Yeah, we go help him.
And does he work in the radio station too?
He does. He sometimes does little radio programs if he has an idea for one. And yeah.
And then the library. So tell them about the library though. That's they put the radio station in there now. So they built a brand new library. Was it by grants or? Yeah. And it was by grants, and they moved. The radio station was in the co-op, right? And then they moved it from the co-op into the library. Oh, the old library, and then into the new one. So there's a brand new one that's right beside the old one, and that they built with grants too, right? Brand new. It just opened up 6 months ago, and that's where her mom works. As a librarian.
Your mother's the librarian.
Yeah.
In Dixon.
Yeah, she's a mean one too.
She is a mean one.
No, she's not. No, she's not. She's
Don't be late with
person.
your books. When it comes to Mar Santos.
Is it a good library for a town of about 1,000?
Yeah, it is, and they're working hard to try to bring in new material that is very useful. They're actually going to have somebody come out and do a presentation on water collection. So it's good for that area that they're bringing in.
Speaking of the water, how often do you get the water from the ditch?
It's about once a week, which is really good for that area. There are other ditches that get it once a year. So
About how many people are on your ditch?
On mine, there are about 100 people.
100.
Yeah, and the other ditches, which I believe there's like 6 or so, there's no more than 30 on the other ditches. So we have a really large ditch that's very complicated.
Oh, why is it complicated?
Well, just a lot of fighting over water. Yes, with all those people.
So you're notified what day you can get your water.
Yeah.
Through the ditch. Do you have to raise a little levee or anything?
Yeah, we just open our gates and
open your gates.
Yeah.
I know they have something in the valley around Fort Sumner similar to that.
Oh, okay.
Now this water comes from where?
I don't know the name of the watershed. It is the Embudo River. But I don't.
The Rio Grande watershed. The Rio Grande watershed is the shed area. It goes into the Rio Grande. Yeah, so it all flows that way. Just like when you get to the other side of the mountain, it turns into the Canadian River watershed or the Cimarron River watershed. It just turns into different areas where that area will funnel into that bigger river. So, but that area goes into the Rio Grande. But the river is called Embudo River. So the water from that ditch comes from the Embudo River.
And so, is there hunting in your community area?
In Dixon, there's just not that much game there. Because it's really dry and sparse, and there's just pinon trees, and that's it. So there's not a lot of hunting right there, but around the surrounding areas are good areas to hunt. Yeah.
And do you have wineries since you have grapes?
Yes, there are 2 wineries there.
And what are the names, or do you know?
La Chiripada Winery is the older one, and Vivac Winery is the newer one.
There's a beer brewery too, really? And it's called Blue Heron. Yeah. And her dad works there also.
He works a lot of places.
Yeah.
Tell me your parents' names.
My dad's name is Brandon Santos, and my mom's name is Mary Santos.
And now, are they original? Are they New Mexicans?
No, my dad is originally from New Orleans.
Oh, really?
I mean, he moved all over the place. And my mother was born in Georgia, but she's an Army brat, so she also was all over the place.
So how did they get to northern New Mexico originally?
I think my mom was going to school at UNM, and my dad was her neighbor. And I don't know why he was there, but there was this creepy guy who was asking my mom on a date, and she was scared of him, and so she begged my dad, who was her neighbor, to take her out so she wouldn't have to go with that guy. So
That's a funny story.
yeah, and the rest is history.
And so how many do you have, brothers and sisters?
One brother and one sister.
And where do they live?
Right now we're all living in Dixon.
All of you, the whole family.
Yeah.
Mom and dad included.
Yes.
Now, do you have any other jobs besides
house actually, but
you live in?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We do live in Taos. Sorry.
but she's in Dixon most of the time.
You work in Dixon.
She
Yeah.
was working in Taos Canyon and she was up there a lot. But sorry.
Now, what were you doing in Taos Canyon?
I was doing a thinning project with my brother.
Oh, you and your brother had a thinning project. Now, is that through the government or the county or the state?
Yes. Taos County got money from the federal government, and then it's dispersing it through local contractors.
And so now, how do you thin?
They've picked out the trees already.
They tell
They've
you
marked
that.
them. And I don't think they did a very good job, just as a side note. But yeah, so you have to limb the trees just so that fire doesn't get up into the trees.
Cut the limbs.
Cut the limbs and take out the trees that they don't want, and so that you have 20-foot spacing between crowns.
And what's a crown?
The crown is like the leaves of a tree. The leaves, right? Is that the crown?
The crown is the canopy. So if it's connected to one another, creates the crown of the tree. Yes, is the top of the tree, but like the crown spacing is meaning you want spacing in between the trees. You don't want them touching. You want them 20 foot apart. So each top of the tree, you want them 20 foot apart. Sorry if I butchered that kind of, but the crown of the tree, yes, is the top of the tree, but it's just meaning the spacing between those crowns is at 20 foot. And it's not necessarily a canopy, but a canopy is trees put together, made, all the crowns of the trees make a canopy, because there can be canopy layers, 2 canopy layers in one area, small trees under other trees. So there can be a couple canopies, but a lot of these areas are tiny. But anyways, yeah, it's 20 foot spacing between the trees, literally.
Space between the
top
needles. Because that's where a fire would
Now,
spread.
what is this done because to fire prevention, or is it done because the trees are diseased?
But fire prevention.
Fire prevention.
Yeah.
So, how many acres of thinning did you all do?
We did a total of 15 acres,
15
and we had to burn the slash from it, and so that was probably the most complicated part of it.
Was it?
Just timing and all that kind of stuff.
Now, what are you going to do this winter?
This winter, I have to prune the orchard and the grapes and get ready for growing in my parents' field. So
And so, in the summer, what are you going to do?
I'm going to be on the Carson Hot Shots.
Carson Hot Shots.
Yeah.
And how many hot shots will there be?
There's 22 usually.
22.
Yeah.
And so, how many women do you think? How many were there last summer?
Last summer there were 2 of us,
2.
and there could be 2 or 3 this year. Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, Grayson, for introducing us to Mar Santos of Dixon, New Mexico, of quite a different area from Muleshoe, Texas.